Greetings, Mark Garang here, publisher of the Conway Daily Sun. And my guest, as you can see, are Mike DiGregorio, Conway School Board member, and our own Lloyd Jones, our education and sports reporter. Hey, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. I've worked for you since 1981. It's about time I got on TV with you.
Yeah,
I like the new studio.
Yeah, no, we upgraded. We actually have desks now.
Highfalutin, isn't it?
I like it.
Lynn loves it.
We're getting
like
there.
it.
So we got a lot to talk about, contracts and the school meetings coming and all that. But man, what's up with this closing of the school yesterday? There wasn't a flurry in the sky.
So clearly school board members are not part of that decision.
Who is?
The superintendent.
Okay.
I wouldn't want that responsibility for anything. First of all, geographically, we're covering all the way from Hart's location, and we have to work with Tamworth and SU 13 because they have, their own superintendent down there, but those kids come up to the high school. I believe, my understanding is there was a lot of pressure by SAU 13 to close. I think it was one of the other SAE something.
MSEU 72 also.
72.
They made the decision the night before,
Yeah.
and I believe Amy wanted to wait until the next day to make a decision, and the others weren't so keen on that decision.
I remember Carl Nelson telling me 20-something years ago that that's one of the most hardest decisions to do. Right? A lot of us live in the village or somewhere near where the roads are plowed pretty well. But there's a lot of people coming from remote areas, and they have to think about the safety of those kids as well. I know Amy is not. She wasn't happy last night. Put it that way.
No.
She might have got bullied a little bit.
Yeah, and it just doesn't look good. I mean, we know. I mean, yeah, there's snow. We live in the North Country. Kids get a day off to go skiing when we don't worry about them breaking legs. And it's just it just looks bad.
In contrast to that, I would never close the school ever, no matter what.
I don't think we ever had a snow day, did we? In our 4 years at
when I went to Kennett, I don't remember a snow day. I'm sure there was. I don't believe in closing down public meetings for snow days. I mean, we all should have four-wheel drive vehicles and get to a meeting. And I would not want to be in Amy's shoes for that decision.
And I think SAU 13 actually canceled a day earlier in this winter, and SAU 9 did not, so that kind of calmed things up. The SAU 13 kids are basically a day behind with their lessons, so they didn't want to have to do that a second time.
I don't know exactly where the snow line was either, but they did get a lot more snow down south. I was down in Durham area today, and they got a lot more down there.
Portsmouth had blizzard conditions.
Yeah, so I don't know where that. I don't know how much.
Wolfboro got 3 inches.
I don't know how much Tamworth got.
Yeah.
And Freedom and all that, but certainly Conway didn't get it. Nobody north got it. But
it was a tough one. We realized it was a tough one. But we're all older. I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
I grew up in Berlin. They didn't even have the definition of snow days. So and we didn't have four-wheel drive. The streets were covered from December to February.
And Amy generally likes to rely on her road agents, and the road agents around here are pretty darn good at giving her good information.
Yeah.
Yep. I think unfortunately what'll happen in the future is she will probably stick to her guns a little stronger.
Good.
And maybe it goes the other way where people will complain that she should have canceled.
Well, did you hear where the mayor of New York, Mamdani, like I know he's no buddy of yours, but he opened the school. They got 2 feet of snow in New York City. They opened the school today, and people are complaining, blah blah blah. Go to school, man.
Yeah.
150,000 people got online and filed a petition to not have school today.
Yeah. They also, he was paying people to shovel sidewalks, but only if you had a driver's license to register. Did you know that?
No.
Two forms of ID to shovel?
To shovel those sidewalks.
Yeah.
Don't need them to vote. But
So we got 2 inches of snow coming around 8 o'clock tomorrow. Any predictions where they get school?
I think Amy will have problems. Again, it's not my call, but I'm guessing Amy will
Get us to school.
Go with it.
Yeah, those big old school buses. Okay, school contracts. Lloyd, take it away.
Holy moly. Next week's going to be kind of crazy.
Crazy.
I think we've got the Conway deliberative on Monday night, but the big thing, all eyes probably will be on Bartlett and Jackson next week. Bartlett has the first town to vote on the new proposed tuition contract with Conway. It's a 5-year agreement. There's a lot of new parameters than what we've had in the past, Mike, and everyone who I've talked to seems to say it's a much more equitable contract for the sounding towns.
It is. What we
Can you just back it up?
Sure.
We had a 20, just in 2 seconds. We had the contract.
I can't do anything in 2
I
seconds.
know,
Mark.
okay. I'll do it then. So we had a contract 20 years ago,
Yep.
right? It's coming up next year,
2027.
2027. So
Correct.
the towns really have to make a decision this
Right now.
meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So you're negotiating with all the towns.
We'll get into that too, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. So now we're at, we got Jackson. And you starting with Bartlett? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Bartlett starts on, Bartlett holds its deliberative meeting on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. And then Jackson holds its on Thursday night at, I believe, 6:30. So
What's the Bartlett agreement?
the Bartlett agreement, right now, the current funding formula is based on 35% of towns' equalized value and 65% of towns' average daily membership. And that kind of all goes away now. It's based purely on the state formula,
per
right?
student.
Cost per student. And that should save Bartlett voters, about $400,000 over the length of yearly in a contract.
I believe it. I believe it will, somewhere around that number. You know, initially when we first started to negotiate a couple years ago, everybody was supportive of just kind of the same language in the last contract and moving, you know, kind of moving forward with that. That didn't really go anywhere, but a lot of that had to do with the state of New Hampshire and this school choice stuff going on. You know, there was a lot of language early on that if there was no contract with anyone, that a town, let's say, and I'll just use Bartlett as an example, if Bartlett wanted to send students to Conway, they would only have to they would send those students at 80% of what the cost was. And nobody could clarify that legislation, but that's what everybody believed. All the lawyers were saying that's how it would lay out. It turns out it was the exact opposite, where, you know, if Conway sent somebody to Bartlett, we would be paying, well, if Bartlett sent somebody to Conway, it would be 80% of their cost. So Bartlett right now, I want to say, is what, $34,000 a student for their K through 8. I believe that's their number.
Yes.
So it'd be 80% of their cost of the $34,000 to go to Conway, where Conway's only $23,000 a student.
We're at $30,000 right now from Bartlett to go to Conway.
Under the current formula.
Under the current formula.
But under what the state was proposing, it would be, you know, 80% of the 34,000. So a lot of the sending towns were, you know, in this wait and see attitude of, you know, how are we going to get our best deal? If we don't necessarily have to have a contract with Conway at all, because we're just going to send them for 80%. And then everybody started to realize that that language was not accurate, and it's extremely confusing. So I'll try to break it down, and to be frank with you, I'm not sure everybody even understands this.
I don't.
So let's just say that we, first of all, we put together a budget, and I'll just use very simple math in Conway. You know, let's say you put together a budget for $1 million, and you have all the students that come to Conway. You know, that budget's $1 million. If you had 15 kids leave that system under school choice, and they were all in one grade, you could very easily say, okay, we're going to have to make a staffing change here, because those 15 kids are going to haul out essentially about $340,000 with them when they leave. Okay. They're going to take that money from Conway, and they're going to send it to wherever they go. And so you would have to make some staffing changes when you're losing that kind of money, if they were all coming out of one grade. But if those same kids come from K through 12 and they're spread out over all those grades, you couldn't make any staffing changes, but you're still going to lose $300 and something thousand out of your budget. So our budget in reality is $40 million for Conway. Conway raises an appropriate $40 million. The sending towns pay approximately $20 million of that. It's, you know, I don't want to split hairs on the exact numbers,
Right.
but let's just say in general, those are the numbers. It's, it was actually Conway was in benefit before, now it's more even, split even. So bottom line is if you sent those kids away, you're taking out $350,000. And this has really always surprised me when some of our budget committee members are supporting school choice, which really is not their goal to make an opinion of school choice or not school choice. That's not their goal. Their goal is to think about budgetary items. So if if only 15 kids left, you'd have to come up with an additional $350,000, or you're going to take it away from general education, right?
Now
It's so convoluted, Mark. It's unbelievable.
Okay, but when you talk about school choice, everybody has a school choice. You can send your kid wherever you want. But
you can.
but the new legislation would be open enrollment. That would be different.
Well, open enrollment to us, school choice.
Okay, so right
I think
now-
we're talking the same.
But
term.
if you're in Bartlett and you send your kid someplace, if you send them to Moultonboro, you just send your kid to Moultonboro. That money doesn't follow it. But
right now,
right now, but the open enrollment, which is legislation in the State House, would allow that.
if it's a sanctioned school, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I
do
think
you support that open enrollment?
I do not. I don't support open enrollment at all.
Okay.
For many reasons. Just real quick.
Yeah.
First of all, that student could be denied. Let's just say that student was a heavy special ed student or a disciplined student, more likely than not a disciplined student. You know, that school, and I'll just use Moultonboro because that's what you use, that school could say, we're not going to take that kid, we're not going to keep him here, you know, and off they go back to Bartlett. That's not fair, you know, because Conway now has to take that person back, right?
Right.
So if open enrollment, when open enrollment was first talked about 20-something years ago, if it was apples to apples, I was actually a supporter of it, but it's got so skewed over the years that I don't support it any longer. And also, frankly, for accountability, our charter schools and homeschooling are getting state money, but they're not accountable like we are. They don't have to get certified like we do. They don't have to produce results like we do. You know, I don't like it.
So going back to what you're talking about, you know, losing a student in all grades in Bartlett, that only can happen in Bartlett, Jackson. That only can happen in Jackson under this new, if they vote to send their kids to Jackson. Like right now, I guess I'm saying if Bartlett loses a couple of kids, they don't lose any money.
Well,
right?
they would, because they would have to pay Conway. Or let's talk about Bartlett Middle School, for example. And I don't want to pick on Bartlett.
Right.
I love Bartlett.
Right.
I love their school board over there.
Right.
I think Emily's doing a phenomenal job, and they're just doing a good job over there. But I will use them as an example.
Sure.
If they put their budget together, and let's say that now that they're keeping all of their middle school kids over there, especially for athletics, if 2 or 3 of those kids from Bartlett decide they want to go to the middle school, Bartlett's budget, and again, let's just say it's $9 million even, out of that $9 million budget, they're going to have to raise and appropriate an additional, what would that be, $66,000 to send those 3 kids to Conway, right?
Under the old contract or the new contract?
Well,
Or both contracts.
well, you were talking open enrollment.
Okay.
Not under
Right,
contractual.
no, I get that.
Right? If it was under contract, that'd be totally different.
Okay,
'cause
but
that
just
would-
to be clear, open enrollment is not the law right now. I mean, that version of it. So
I think it's open enrollment has been, yeah. I think
open enrollment that the towns have to pay, I didn't think that
that's
was.
been in effect for years. Just nobody's done it. It's now, for some reason, come to this highlight because there was a court case in southern New Hampshire where one town took the other town to court, or the parents, I think, took the other town to court, and they won. The Superior Court said, yep, that town who did not approve spending any money over, what was the private school, or the school, Pinkerton, was it?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember the name of the school. Anyways, there was a family that wanted their kid to go to another school, and the town said, no, we're not paying for it. That family took the town to court, and the judge said, yes, you are paying for it.
And that's recently.
Within the last year.
Okay, so
I think
that's
it was
why
October.
it's changed.
That's why it's blown up.
Okay, that's okay. That
I
makes
think
sense.
there's like 4 different bills in the House and Senate, just going back and forth. Amy's been nonstop in meetings, and Mike Whalen said he's had a lot. And
You mean to oppose it?
just to try and weigh in on it. They're just trying to get the superintendents, the educators. It's been the legislators who've kind of been dictating what open enrollment should look like, and they've really not tapped into anyone in the Department of Education or any of the New Hampshire School Board Association, anyone like that. They've just kind of been saying, let's do it.
Okay, so getting back to here, right? So Bartlett's going to be up on Tuesday night.
Bartlett's
What have
gonna
they
be a
negotiated? What have they negotiated with you?
Proposed 5-year contract.
Yep.
It's calling for annual maintenance fund payment in addition to tuition, a portion of the capital improvement plan based on average daily membership and attendance. All fees are not to exceed 20% in a given year. Special education and transportation costs are at the market value rate to be paid by the sending town. No meals are included. Meals costs will be based on free and reduced lunch regulations. There will be an
all that stuff's always been in there.
automatic 1-year renewal of the agreement unless notice is
Okay,
provided
so
a year
what are
in
the
advance.
highlights, though? I mean, the highlights
The
is the
biggest
change.
part is that
The cost.
the funding,
Right.
instead of doing with the evaluation as Lloyd laid out earlier, it's all about cost per student based on what the DOE says. So we submit our budget, we go through the year and spend all that money. After the final accounting is done, which is typically in that September, October, November timeframe, the DOE says, okay, this is what it cost you to educate all of those kids last year.
Right.
That's the number that comes out. And then because we raise and appropriate in Conway all the money first, the first thing that's attached to the new number is, I think it's a 2.5%, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's essentially that because Conway's raised and appropriate that money, if I think it's inflation, if the numbers get inflated too much, there's a kind of a buffer in there for Conway for that 2.5%. And then there's, we attach some maintenance money. They've always been paying for maintenance, right? So the way maintenance works right now is we all know that there's three articles on the warrant that put money in an account, for the high school, middle school, and elementary. We all know that those accounts were woefully underfunded for the last 20 years. Everybody has said that, but nobody adjusted it. And then, so what was created was what is Article 9, which has always been basically the overall maintenance trust fund. So large portions of money get put into that fund when Conway expends that money. So Conway raises all of that money, puts it in that fund. When Conway expends that fund, then the sending towns get billed for that like a year later in that budget cycle, which again, people have to understand that we're putting together budgets,
18 months.
18 months.
Right.
Well, it's even longer than that because we start the conversation in September. So we started this conversation let's say September, October of 2025, but those dollars won't get fully expended until June of 27.
Okay, so this is, we can get in the weeds really
We can,
quickly
real
with this, but
fast.
just for
Bartlett-
people who are
and there's
now
a-
sleeping, watching this. So Bartlett now, instead, they had to spend 90% of their kids to the.
Now it's 75%.
Now it's 70%. And then is it the percentage of the money they send to Conway is based on valuation of their property, or has that changed too?
It's just on the average daily membership.
Just average daily membership.
Okay, so the bottom line of that is Bartlett's going to send less money to Conway.
Bartlett, under the new formula, is saving $400,000.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
400, they're saving 400,000. Yay for Bartlett. That means Conway has to pick up the 400,000, correct?
Under the new formula, Conway's picking up more cost, absolutely. And the more people that send people away.
Right.
So every time any sending town, people have to get this really clear. Any child that goes to any other school than Conway, let's say Kennett or the middle school, the cost per student rises.
Right.
Because you're
down one.
you're not sending those kids, right? We can talk about how Jackson
Okay,
does
so
their
just
thing, but-
before that, so Bartlett's going to go Tuesday. Is there any reason how that's not going to be passed?
I would think it would pass
Easily.
Should pass easily. There's no other option there for Bartlett. They didn't submit any
Okay.
other option.
So Bartlett's done. Let's move on to Jackson.
Jackson is where things
action
get
is.
super interesting. Jackson is proposing 2 contracts. One is a 10-year agreement to send their students to Freiburg Academy, and another is a 5-year agreement to send them to Conway. A lot of the parameters are similar to the Bartlett, Albany, and Eaton contract, except Jackson wanted a clause in there, Mike, where they wanted to be able to send 0 kids to Conway, right? And so
Correct.
there's a little inflated cost there. So their per pupil cost to go to Conway is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $28,000, and as opposed to $24,000 for Albany, Eaton, and
So they have their own grammar school. How many kids are in a high school?
16.
Yeah,
16.
not many.
16,
so-
and currently 7 of those go to Freiburg.
Okay, so in the
Academy.
way it works, it's going to be a ballot issue, right? Well, I guess it doesn't matter if it's valid. And
Someone will call for secret ballot. I'm
someone will
sure.
call for secret ballot. So both are probably going to pass. I mean,
Well, I hope not. I hope Freiburg doesn't pass.
yeah, but it's hard to believe that. Like if I was a parent, I'd say, look, I want my kid to go to. I don't want to deprive my neighbor from sending their kid to either one of those
Well,
schools.
that's interesting that you say that because,
Yeah.
because first of all, you would have to be paying for that. Right now, those kids go over there privately,
Right.
and they're paid for privately.
Right.
And so parents made a choice to live in New Hampshire. So I assume that they're probably making some decent money. They don't want to live in Maine and pay Maine state income tax. So they come over here to New Hampshire. And now they're asking you to, in your taxes, to pay for their choice to send their kid to Freiburg that they were self-paying before. So right now there's 7 kids that go, I think it's actually 9, but they're disclosing 7 kids that go over to Freiburg. And those kids, and they're paying, you know, $25,000 a year for those
Right.
kids out of their own pocket.
Right.
So now they're asking the taxpayers to pick up that cost, which is roughly $240,000 or something like that, that they're asking to dump onto you, the taxpayer, because of their choice to send their kids
Right.
to Freiburg.
But this is what I don't
And
get.
there's an avenue to do that. If your kid has to go to Freiburg because they can't get along at Kennett, there's an absolute avenue to do that through the system currently that the taxpayers wouldn't, the parents of those wouldn't have to self-pay. But that's not where these kids are falling into. These are parents that are choosing to do that on their own.
Right, but under the new formula, if the new formula isn't based on property valuation, it's just based on census and cost per student, if Jackson is sending 7 kids to Freiburg, they vote this in, doesn't that mean that Jackson, for the rest of the 8 kids or 9 kids, will be sending only 9 kids and less money to Conway?
It would be less kids to Conway.
Right, and less money from Jackson too.
Overall, there would be less because of the evaluation is gone, and the Jackson taxpayers would be picking up the cost of the kids going to Freiburg.
Right, but
what they're not doing right now. That's
Right,
an
but-
additional 200 and something thousand into their budget.
Right, but isn't it true that they're going to be working under the Conway special article? Is that the same agreement that Bartlett has, the 5-year agreement? No, it's totally.
It's the same agreement with the exception of the premium that Jackson asked for because they wanted to go from 75% to 0.
And they're paying on per student to go to Conway.
Yes.
Okay, so if they're paying 15 students to go to school A or school B, Canada or Freiburg, what's the difference?
Because they're not paying for those 7 kids now.
Right, but they're paying, not paying, but they are paying in there.
No, but they're not paying for those 7 kids now. The parents, in fact, it's the school board members' kids that are the ones that are going
Right.
over there. So they personally will
Right.
save, well, if they were there for 4 years, they'd personally save $400,000.
But
over
Jackson
that time frame.
Jackson was paying under a different formula, is my point, under the current formula. So they were paying a lot anyway, because part of their formula was based on property valuation. Now it's only per student.
Right.
So 7 kids here, 7 kids there, you're still paying per student. You may pay more per student, but whether you pay at the Freiburg or Conway.
Overall, you might pay less.
I don't think so because don't forget their budget has dramatically increased
Special
over the
ed.
last year.
Special ed.
And they're, Bartlett's actually just over $51,000 a year per student. So that's why their budget is getting.
Jackson's 50.
I'm sorry, did I say Bartlett?
Right, but because of the, I'm sorry, but not to interrupt, because of the formula, because they have fewer kids and a lot of property.
No, that $51,000 is just because of the elementary kids, not because of the high school.
Okay,
So big difference.
okay. So I guess my point is, and we can stop this, but it doesn't, under this stuff, if both pass under the new agreement from Jackson to Conway, whether from a Jackson taxpayer, whether you send half the kids to Freiburg or half the kids to Conway, you're still going to be spending the same total amount, basically.
Well, I don't know because if you sent all of those kids over to Conway, and again, that would be the parents' choice to do that, but if you sent them all over, then the cost per student dramatically comes down because you're sending 7 or 9 more kids, right? So cost per student is directly based on how many kids go. Again, every time you send a kid somewhere else, your cost per student for the other taxpayers in the other towns,
Yeah.
because these decisions affect all the other
No,
towns.
I appreciate that, but I guess
know.
maybe I'm not clear on the new formula. is it based on totally on the cost per student?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So whether you're spending $32,000 to send a kid to Freiburg or $32,000 to send a kid to Conway, from Jackson's perspective, is the same thing.
If you were paying for those kids today, but you're not.
Right. But you, under the new agreement, that's how it's going to be. That's how I would look at it.
Well, I wouldn't because I wouldn't because those parents are going to continue to pay for their own kids to go. Again, they made a decision to live on this side of the line.
Right.
And because of that decision, now they're asking the taxpayers to pick up that cost.
So now I'll make you a point. So if now under the new formula, because they're paying per kid, right? If they just approve the Conway one, and those 7 kids go to Freiburg, and now it's out of the parents' pockets.
Still.
Now Jackson's only sending 7 kids to Conway. That's a whole lot less than sending 15 kids to both schools.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Now you
And
got
it's
it.
a 10-year contract with Freiburg.
Right.
Okay.
And
10-year
there's
contract.
major things that are missing out of that Freiburg contract that's not in here. There's an additional 20% maintenance that's not in here for this number here.
Yeah.
There's no bus in the afternoon. I don't know whether you guys have picked up on that in your writings. So there's a bus that will pick up kids in Jackson. They'll bring them to Kennett High School. There's a Freiburg bus that will bring them to Freiburg in the morning. There's no bus in the afternoon to bring them back to Kennett. Those kids have to wait over there until the sports bus and comes back, I think late in the day, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whenever that comes over, and then they'll bring them back to Kennett to pick up the sports bus.
Why did you
at
agree to
Kennett.
this?
I didn't agree to it.
Well, didn't you?
I think it's completely wrong. That's the Freiburg contract. I would absolutely.
Jackson's
I would
contract
never
with
have agreed
Freiburg.
to that.
Okay, so you were, but who? Someone agreed to it.
Jackson did not.
No, I mean we did. We had to accept it. Conway had to accept it.
No.
Well, Conway's got no say-so over it. We have a contract with Jackson that we're hoping that they're going to vote for
Right.
and support,
Right.
and not support the Freiburg contract at all.
Yeah. All right.
You
Okay.
know?
Good enough. Okay. So that's Bartlett.
I'm just pointing out the stuff that's wrong with it.
No, I hear you.
know?
It totally makes sense. So we got Bartlett, Jackson. Now what about the ones down south?
And by the way, that information came from Bartlett, Eaton, Albany, because they did their due diligence over in Freiburg as well. And these were the stuff that they came back and said to us that, you know,
What information?
well, the busing and the Career Tech Center. So in Conway, all of the students that come to Kennett have complete access to the Career Tech Center. The students that go over to Freiburg, they have to be chosen to
go
be
to
able
Lake
to
Region.
go over to Lakes Region to be involved in the Career Tech Center. We're allowing 100% of those students. And keeping in mind that almost 100% of all students at Kennett, especially over 4 years, participate in the Career Tech Center. They don't get excluded. They're not, you know, you're from Jackson, you can't come here. 100% of those kids, 97% of the Tamworth kids participate in the Career Tech Center all the time.
And at least 2 courses, I believe.
So
Yeah.
you said X number of kids are Jackson School Board kids. You think this is just cooked up by the Jackson? Is this like an insider Jackson School Board thing?
Do you want me to go on the record for that?
Well, we're on TV, so go for ahead.
Yes, I do. I do. I do believe that it's a I've never seen such a conflict of interest in my 35 years of being in public, elected as a public official. I think it's a direct conflict of interest for them to be negotiating that contract when it directly affects their pocketbook. And yes, I'll go on the record saying that.
Okay, well said. What about the southern towns?
Southern towns is where it gets a little even more interesting, Mark, because the hope was 16 months ago, Conway started negotiating with all of the sending towns in SAU 9 and SAU 13, and the hope was that all of the towns would bring a warrant article forward in March, because Conway needs to start its budgeting process in September or August for the 27 school year. But unfortunately, the 3 sending towns, Madison, Freedom, and Tamworth, all of SAU 13, have not put a warrant article on their warrant for next month. They're, in fact, Freedom is at impasse with Conway, and there's been very little discussion with Madison and Tamworth as of late, from my perspective. But
That would be accurate. So you're 100% right in everything you said. Our legal counsel has told us all along, and we've relayed that information to the sending towns, that either in March, all of the sending towns either have to have a warrant article giving the school board the authorization to enter into a multi-year contract, or they have to enter the actual multi-year contract on the warrant, which is what Jackson is doing. Bartlett, I believe, has something on there to give them authorization for a multi-year contract, I believe is how they're doing it. And I think
Albany and Eaton. have
Albany and
similar.
Eaton already did that. They did that some time ago. For whatever reason, the information that SAU 13 has been given, they thought they had all the time in the world, despite the fact that we kept telling them we don't believe that's accurate. And in fact, in the last meeting with Tamworth and Mike Whalen was there, I explained to him, like, Mike, we've said this over and over, we start putting together our budget in September. If we don't have a contract with you between now and then, you know, we can't put our budget together, including Tamworth, because that's who was happened to be at the table that day. And I think a light bulb went off for him at that moment, because he, you know, didn't realize or didn't understand. And then in addition to that, we wouldn't be able to sign a multi-year contract. So let's just say we could get a contract in place between now and September, right? Before we start putting our budgets together, we absolutely and hopefully will
Have a
get
special meeting.
No, they don't even need a special meeting.
Oh.
They could put together, you know, we could make an agreement, but it could only be a 1-year agreement, because our attorneys are saying they have to have permission to do a multi-year agreement.
I mean, permission from the voters.
Permission from the voters. So I can't imagine our attorneys would let us sign a contract for a multi-year agreement unless they had gotten approval from their voters. I envision right now, and I'm not a lawyer, but I don't even try to play one. I do try to play one on TV. I couldn't
You
imagine.
said you've been to 2 mock trials.
I've been to 2 mock trials. I'm getting good at this stuff. I would envision we would have to sign a single-year contract with the sending towns, which would allow us to put our budget together, SAU 13 sending towns, which would allow us to put our budget together in September, including those towns. So it still can happen. Freedom, we did send them a letter saying that one of their board members was asking for stuff privately that we absolutely will not agree to. We sent a letter to the full board asking for clarification. If those requests by that person was the full board's thought process, then we're at an impasse, and we haven't heard back from them at all.
Okay, so the way it stands now, none of those towns have anything on their town warrants.
Correct.
That means, okay, but you're saying that even if it's not on the town warrants and you got together, you could have a 1-year agreement without going back to the town voters.
That's the only way I envision that.
Okay, so then what? If there's no agreement, I mean, if there's no 1-year agreement, what happens?
They can't come on July 1st of 2027. We won't be taking any kids from those towns.
I mean, something just doesn't make fundamental sense here.
Yeah, you need to go to their school board meetings and ask them those questions. Because we've been asking those same questions. What is the underlying thought process of to why you're not coming to a table? Why do I have to send a dozen emails out to Freedom with no response? You know,
What's your theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think some people are still holding grudges, Mike. Perhaps they're just saying that 20-year contract, damn you for putting us in that situation, and they're just reflecting on that instead of willing to move forward and start anew, perhaps.
You're probably right. I mean, that has come up at some meetings when, you know, and I've been very upfront. I didn't write the contract 20 years ago. The person that was sitting across the table didn't write it. You know, in fact, that contract, as you remember, was created by people that didn't even live in Conway. You know, the people that were involved in creating that weren't even Conway residents.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
You know, and I mean, and to hold any type of a grudge or animosity on something that is done and over with, or will be after this year, is beyond bizarre to me.
It's Irish
know.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
You know that?
I mean, let's negotiate in good faith. You know, we're trying to be as fair and equitable to all sending towns as we can. And frankly, some of the requests that's coming out of Freedom and Tamworth, we will not agree to, because it's going to negatively affect Madison, Albany, Eaton, and all the other sending towns, to the point where that we're not going to go back to those towns and say, hey, you got to pony up more because Freedom and Tamworth want to save
They
money.
must have an exit plan. I mean, somebody's thinking about something.
I don't
I know Freedom is looking at possibly Kingswood.
They
Tamworth has got a partial deal where they negotiated 2 years ago where they could send up to 7 students on a trial basis to Molten Borough Academy. I think maybe 2 families took them up on that opportunity, but I've not seen anything proposed on any of the warrants for any
This
other
is
school
Albany too.
district.
No,
this is-
Albany's good.
Albany's good.
Albany, Eaton, everything in SAU 9 is going to be fine. We're concerned about Jackson, but we're hoping the voters will fix Jackson. But you know,
How many kids are those outlier towns? How many kids?
Quite a few.
Like,
It will negatively affect.
I mean, that's like education dystopia.
It will absolutely
If you took
negatively
Tamworth,
affect.
Madison, and
the-
Freedom, you're probably talking 150 kids.
Yeah.
In high school. That's
Yeah.
150 kids in high school because
Yeah,
they
I
have
would
their own
think,
yeah.
primary schools.
Yeah, I would
Yep.
think in that ballpark.
Have you ever, just a little quick aside, George Epstein is always Mr. Cooperative, school cooperative.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay, answer it.
Can't
What's
do
your
it.
vision for education in the
Can't
Mount
do it
Washington Valley?
quickly. Okay. First of all,
Hey, we
How
got to
much
go
time we got?
we got to go to dinner at some point here,
Okay.
Mike.
First of all, you can't have to take emotion out of every bit of what I'm about to say, because emotion. Thank you for.
Well, not motion. You know, we got
Did I say-
motions. We got the emotion.
Emotion.
Yeah.
Take that out of the equation. You know, as someone who was involved in closing down John Fuller, I completely understand the emotion of some of the things I'm about to say. But I believe that, first of all, school choice is going to completely destroy the middle schools in Tamworth and Bartlett, Jackson.
And why is that?
Well, because I think you're going to, when it opens up, I think you're going to get a lot of middle school kids that want to come up to Conway. And if
Play
we don't have
sports.
contracts in place for middle school at all with any of those towns, they're going to want to come up because of all the extracurricular activities that Conway provides that those towns don't. And it's going to come out of those budgets that are already existing. So that's my prediction. But bigger picture than that, I personally think that SAU 13 should collapse tomorrow.
Is Mike, is he going?
He's
Mike
going.
Whalen was offered the position and accepted it on Friday.
Okay, so
he's
there's your
on the moment.
opportunity.
So
right?
there's your opportunity. SAU 13 is now going to be looking for a new superintendent. Instead of replacing that superintendent, collapse SAU 13 now. They spend $1.7 million for 3 little towns, and Tamworth, being the poorest of all 3 of those towns, is paying the brunt of that bill because they have the most students.
It's about a 2-year process for something like that to happen because,
To dissolve it?
yeah, the Freedom, Madison, and Tamworth would have to form an exploratory committee to see what they wanted to do. That would take about a year. Then they'd have to bring forward a warrant article, and then that same warrant article would have to appear on all of the SAU 9 towns to see if they'd want to accept
Right.
those
It's a
towns to come
process,
in.
and I'm glad that you brought that up. But it's an absolute process, but it's a money issue that has to happen. Once that gets accomplished, the next step is to form either a regional or cooperative. And I'm not completely clear on the difference between regional and cooperative. Some people, I think Randy, have said a cooperative, you have to build a new school. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, outside of my pay grade as far as the semantics of the two, but it should happen, right?
So you agree with the concept of cooperative?
100%.
Because a cooperative means you have one big old school board. Everybody has sort of a say.
Exactly, and that's the third point that I was going to make. All of the sending towns, the biggest problem that we hear about is they feel as though they don't have a voice at the table.
Right.
And this would absolutely give them a voice at the table, and they should have it. SAU 13 pulled out back in 1991, I believe it was, created their own SAU down there for the sole purpose they thought they were going to have more say-so in education, and they got less. And the
And
reality
you've got
is
the poorest of the 3 towns, which is Tamworth, which has the most students, so they're footing the
bill.
biggest bill.
yeah.
And they're not as
If
properly
you want
rich
to
as
see it at
Freedom
the
and
table,
Madison.
if you want to have direct impact in education, and I say this to all the sending towns and their voters of all the sending towns, because frankly, I brought this up to all the sending towns tuition negotiation. Those voters need to get in front of those school board members and start asking these questions. Why are we not trying to get a voice at the table? That should be their #1 goal. So we can get rid of 27 school board members in SAU 9, create an entirely new board using the voices from all the sending towns. So it's not just Conway that rules the nest on the decision making, it's all of the towns that rule the nest.
One person for each town, one representative?
Whatever the representative would be. I mean, that sounds clear to me, but I'm just the idea
wasn't
guy,
the
not the.
I mean, 20 years ago we went through this, right? Before we had the contract.
I think Jackson.
And
turned it
Jackson
down.
was the only one. They
Jackson
all
was the
passed
first to vote and voted it down, so it killed it. For all
But
the
everybody
other
else, all the other towns.
What
towns
they
were
should
on
have done
board.
is said
Conway
Jackson-
voted for it, and then we
Right.
thought Conway would be the big stumbling block, and Conway passed it by a pretty wide margin.
Right.
Then it went to Jackson, and Jackson said, nah.
They should have pushed Jackson out and said, fine, go out on your own. We're doing this anyways. And they didn't do it.
Boy, Jackson's been a thorn in you guys' side for 20 years now.
I love Jackson. I just think that they're getting a little misguided up there on a few subjects. But I think Jackson's a great town, and I like the people. So,
All right.
you know,
So a regional school, you'd be for that.
I would be absolutely for a regional school. I think financially, it absolutely will save millions of dollars.
You mean another big school? You mean to build another? When you say regional, is that
A
code?
regional school district, I guess.
A regional school
Yeah,
district.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to build any new schools right now,
Okay.
unless it's next to your property.
Okay.
What else you got?
Okay. Are we done with the all that contracts and stuff?
I think so. I mean,
right.
You got enough headlines for a few weeks here, so.
I just want to find out why those 3 towns. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I could see if they said, "Screw you," you know, we're gonna whatever, but just not to have any communication.
Well-
Just something doesn't seem right, Mike.
Yeah,
you were close to a finish line when unfortunately Jack Waldron passed the chair of the
Yeah.
Tamworth board, right?
yeah, and you know the thing is that, you know, Jack was a little hung up on the percentage of students allowed to go somewhere else, but frankly, he doesn't have a contract with anybody else that's that high, right? He's only allowed to send a certain to Molten Borough, so he wouldn't have violated anything at 75%. Same with Freedom. They currently have a contract with Kingswood to allow a few kids to go over there, but that contract only allows 10% of their overall students. So even at 75% with Freedom, they're not violating anything.
No.
You know, and I don't understand why all 3 of those towns aren't signing, except for the fact that I think Dr. Frechette has guided towns correctly for the best choice for their towns, and the guidance that they're getting out of SAU 13 is quite different, and I think that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, I think the SAU 13 towns, from their perspective, they're thinking that we actually have a year because it's not going to happen until 2027.
That's a great example.
And they thought that they could just be perhaps a placeholder in the budget, that you just go ahead and budget that. Plan on us coming until we're not. And that's not really
Well,
beneficial
again,
for
it
you
plays
guys.
into the school choice thing where they all thought they were coming up here for 80% of what our cost was rather than 80% of their cost.
Okay,
know.
so the school warrant's always pretty easy, actually. I mean, the town warrant's got like 75 special articles on it. The school has only a few. The 2 big ones, and Lloyd, if you could explain them. I mean, all the facilities stuff, all that stuff gets passed. Or looks like the
Teacher contracts.
teacher
probably the biggie.
contract.
But that's been approved. The last 4 teacher contracts have been approved by an overwhelming margin.
Right.
But there's a big cost on this one. It's a cumulative cost of $3.8 million over 3 years.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it's $736,640 for the first year, then $605,000 for the second, and $452,000 in the last year. But you got to roll over the money from the previous years.
Right. So,
Yeah, but that's only 1 point. How do you figure that, Lloyd?
Well, you got the $736,000 for the first year.
Yeah.
You got to multiply that by 3 years because that's going to be in the budget from here on out. If you approve it the first year.
Yeah, but the 3rd year, you're still going to have the first 700,000. The 2nd year, you're going to, I mean, at the end of 3 years, you're going to have the 700,000. It doesn't get multiplied by 3 because every year it's a new 700,000, right?
Well,
to me, it's like 700 plus 600 plus 400, 1.7 million total.
I'll go with his number.
Yeah, but
No?
you go with my number, $736,000 for the first year. You got to multiply that by 3 years for the length of the contract. So that's $2.1 million. And
Right.
then you've got the 605,000. You got to multiply that by 2, so that's another 1.2 million. And you add that with the 2.1 million, and then you add in.
I'm not sure that's
The
100% accurate
452,000.
because it's based on the percentage of raise that year. So I think the first year is a pretty good jump, but that second year, they're at this number and they're only increasing to that percentage to the next number.
Well, I got that
You know.
cumulative figure from our superintendent
Yeah,
and from the school, from the budget
But
committee.
and believe me, I'm no
Yeah.
fan of the
Bill,
your big-
Bill
your big-
Marvel has always said you've got to.
No, but that's like saying, oh, if you put a maintenance in for $1 million this year and $1 million next year and $1 million the year after, that's a total of $3 million. Well, everything continues on.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, at the end of 3 years, we're going to be paying 1.7 million more in 3 years at that year
Right.
than you are today.
Right. Here's what I would say overall. We know that the teachers in this area are underpaid compared to some of the other areas that are close by. You know, we losing teachers to Madison for an additional $15,000 a year. We're losing teachers to Meredith for an additional $25,000 a year. We almost lost one over to Kennebunkport for $30,000 for the exact same jobs. You know, these are areas that are within driving distance of us. And those are real numbers that people have left here and gone over there, with the exception of the one in Kennebunk, because she's no longer a teacher.
And personnel's
So-
personnel's 75% of the budget, basically
I-
74.9% or something.
Well, Bill Marvel's always said it's about 80%. I think this year it's a little bit lower because we've actually started spending a little bit of money on maintenance. You know, we had a brand new building for 20 years that nobody was really looking at as far as what our maintenance costs would be in 20 years. So when I got on the board, we started adding a little bit more money into the maintenance, which dropped the teacher percentage ratio down a little bit into the 70s. So.
But if you take the, and I didn't do the homework on this, and Bill Marvel would know this off the top of your head, and I'm sure you guys do. What if you take the whole budget and divide by the students? What does it cost per student? The whole budget.
I think it's 23,000.
So that's
Per
$40
kid.
million times. I didn't bring that
42
sheet of
million?
paper either. But 40. How many kids in the system? It's like 6.
1,500 or so.
1,200, isn't it? Or
There's going to be 12 next year. 2000. Right. So 40 million.
1,326 for 2025
Yeah.
for total.
So do the
enrollment
math for
county.
that. That's
So-
more than $20,000 a student.
That's what cost per student is overall. So if you look at the state thing, what is it? It must be, I think the maintenance jumped that number up a little bit because we did put $1.8 million in the budget in the last couple of years. So I think our cost per student has jumped up to like 24,000, 25,000. But
I'd say it's more like 30,000. I mean, 30,000.
I'm just telling you what the state says.
Well, no, but I mean, if you take $30,000.
Projected enrollment for 1,180 for 2026.
Right. So if you
27.
take, if we had 1,000 kids, and we have a $40 million budget, that's 40,000 per kid. And we got 1,100 kids, so it's less than that. So it's more like 30. I guess my point
More like
is,
37.
huh?
More like 36, 37.
36,000. What is when you say we're paying, the teachers are getting paid in all these surrounding schools? I'm curious as to what the total cost per student of those school systems are.
Well, they're all higher. So we're the cheapest school system around. So especially
per student.
per
Per
student.
student, yes.
We are far below. I think at one point when I looked at it last year, we were anywhere from $7,000 to $17,000 less per student just in the valley, or including the SAU 13, between 7,000 and 17,000 less per student.
Conway is, for the elementary school, Conway is about $27,000 less than Jackson.
Yes.
Well, you can't. Jackson's
throw
such an
Jackson-
but
outlier.
And
but all of them.
Bartlett's
I mean,
30-something thousand.
Freedom's 40,000, Madison's 40,000, Tamworth's 38,000. You know, I mean, those are the numbers that are local, and they're paying all of their teachers more money. You
All
know,
right. So I don't have any.
The
I
new
don't have my
contract
numbers.
basically moves the bachelor's, teacher with a bachelor's gets moved more closer to the state median. And then with a master's in 10 years, that moves it almost up to the state median. And there was a 3% increase in coaches and our co-curricular stipends. And then there was movement on health insurance where the staff were willing to look at some different plans as long as they kept the 80%.
and I think that actually allowed us to reduce that
did.
overall.
But getting to
number.
the state median, if you get to the state median, which is halfway, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good because we're in the northern part. We're not in Hanover. We're not there. They pay a lot more. It's a whole different demographic. So once we get there, man, you're not going to be able to come back and say, well, you know, we don't have enough money.
Well, first of all, there's a lot playing into that, in the sending towns tuition contracts have a lot to do with that. So if they decide to move on, go somewhere else, education in Conway is going to dramatically change. You just can't get around that, especially at the high school.
Yeah.
You know,
It's going to be changed. It's going to be smaller.
yeah, and I don't know what that's going to look like.
Right.
I wouldn't even want to pretend what that would look like. So
Yeah, you probably end up consolidating everything into Kennett, the middle school there, that kind of thing.
as much as I would hate to see it, I mean, I could envision a K through 12 at the high school,
Yeah.
which means the Career Tech Center would be dead. And I don't think anybody in this town,
Oh, I don't think.
well, you wouldn't have any place to put them.
No, but I don't think you get through K through 12. And this is like a
Right,
third beer
right.
discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so go to the budget, Lloyd. Explain the default and where we are.
Budget, I think for the first time in my recollection, the default budget is more than the school operating budget. The school operating budget is going to come in at $42,555,370. The default budget is $42,565,000, which is about $9,000 more. So the last 2 years, Conway voters have defeated the proposed operating budget and gone with a default budget. So that's led to some staff reductions. I think 32 staff members have been reduced over the last 4 years. So given those obligations and other contract obligations, that's lowered what your default budget could be.
Yeah, I think that,
Made the default budget higher than the actual budget.
What was the budget last year? You know?
Last year came in at about 41 million.
Okay, so the budget is going to be a little bit more, $1 million more regardless.
It's basically because of a 12.5% increase in health insurance, which is 1.55 million, and now health insurance now tops over $9 million in the district, and then there's retiree health insurance on top of that.
absolutely. So we let off enough staff to this year, which was 11 souls, which would make up the difference on basically the teacher's contract. We moved 2 people over to the SAU 9 because, frankly, that's where they should have been 20 years ago. And
That's your technology
coordinator and
tech assistant.
And so no question that we've been making changes, well aware of what's going on in the budget. I do like to remind people all the time that Conway only pays half of that budget.
Right.
So, usually a school department is like 60% of your tax rate, and probably on paper somewhere it is, but we're only raising an additional $5 million more than the town, as opposed to, the 60%. But anyways, I don't want to get into any town budget because I think they do a fine job over there. But we're well aware of where budgets are going and where enrollment's going, and I think Amy is doing a really good job with trying to change the report card. Everybody's heard me say that term. We've got some pretty good results in the last few testing periods. We're starting to see some good swing in the upward movement.
Krista Bechet, difference maker, you think?
Absolutely. I'm 100% behind that position, and Krista,
What's she do?
she's the curriculum coordinator.
Yeah.
So unlike before, and I fought hard for this at the SAU 9, I wanted someone at the SAU 9 that was completely in charge of curriculum through all of our schools, through Conway and Bartlett, and hopefully at some point has a good enough relationship to start making some changes down in the SAU 13.
What kind of like? Do you know specifically what she's done? Like a new
Well,
program, a new this.
The first year, it's been a lot about data. Like
Okay.
she is inputting a tremendous amount of data, and there was just today's Tuesday, right? I'm losing
Last
track of
night
my
we
days.
had a presentation. Monday
She did a
night.
presentation last night, and showing some really good upward ticks.
Why?
Well, because of what she's focusing on.
Which is what?
Well, now you're going to need one of them in here to answer
No,
that one.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean,
know.
like in general, like
Got every grade now is on the same trajectory, I guess. They're all on the same books, and rather than Bartlett being over here on Mike Math, or Jackson over on Lloyd Math, and Conway on Mark Math, were all on the same math program, and so they've set up all these professional learning communities where they get together and they brainstorm, they collaborate, I think once a week, and they just got everyone on the same math trajectory. And now our reading scores have improved pretty substantially. I was surprised by that. I was pleasantly surprised Monday night when we were presented the data that the state average is like 50%, and we're at 64% with our K through third graders, and then we're a little higher in the middle school. High school is a little lower, but there were strides being made.
Okay, so you're saying
at the
that,
lower grades.
and we were talking about this before on the air because I didn't know
Yeah.
why. But in the Article 6, it says right here, English proficiency 51%, math 32%.
Those are numbers from before.
Okay,
Last year's numbers.
okay, 30%. So you're going to be up there. Those aren't great. 32%.
No.
Right.
No,
so,
that's what we're doing, and it's amazing. Even it was brought up last night by a spectator that that some of the things that people say as if we're not paying attention to this, we are. It just doesn't change overnight.
Right.
There's a huge difference. Since I've been back on this board, and since Dr. Frechette has been the superintendent, her complete focus is those numbers that you're looking at right now.
Because you know, at the school meeting, people are going to bring that up.
I don't know. Yeah, they may. They may.
Okay,
Bill
so-
Marvel certainly will.
yeah, so do you
because
think at
he,
this-
he lives on those numbers?
I know. So predictions-wise, at the school meeting, you think? I know the budget committee, Bill or Steve or somebody's going to come up and, want to say cut 500,000 or 800,000.
I was surprised that wasn't done sooner by the budget committee. They usually recommend
Well, they
some
tried.
cuts. Did they try?
Yeah, they had no support this year. I mean,
Yeah.
I think both Bill Marvel and Steve Angers both tried to cut the budget because that's what they do, and they were not successful.
Have you heard of the Mississippi Miracle?
No.
So the Mississippi Miracle. See, this is what It's funny. We're in an industry here where we're threatened as a newspaper, right? So we're always looking for the most, things to do, new ideas and all that. So like what they did in Mississippi, they were last. Mississippi, they were
school?
last school.
Yeah.
And then they're ninth now.
Nice.
And the reason they did it, and you've always been a big advocate of like the early grade, second and third grade.
Absolutely.
So they have this new, whatever it is, new program for reading in the second and third grade. But key is that if you don't pass the proficiency test at third grade, you stay back.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm all for it.
it just seems like we
Can't
could
get anywhere with that. Just so you know.
Maybe we're getting there. Maybe we're getting there.
We
but
did get to rewrite the retention policy, which is what that's called. It's not strict enough for me. I don't think I would want it at the third grade level, but I absolutely want it at K1 and 2. And then the reason, I just believe that, first of all, I think a child at K1 and 2 probably won't remember or won't care that they stayed back. All three of my nieces stayed back in first grade because that's what their mother wanted. They both just graduated. All three of them just graduated. They're phenomenal kids, and they did excellent in school. But here's what I would change in what has happened in the past. Because when I brought this conversation up, that was probably one of the most conversations I had in the grocery store with people that went through the experience of their kids staying back. Almost all of them were told their kid was staying back in June, okay, just before the season was over. My plan would be, and I really can't get this through the rest of the board, was, in January, somebody should be sitting down with that parent saying, hey, Mark is struggling in these areas. These are the things we need you to do to help Mark get better. We're going to work on this stuff. We need you to do this stuff at home. And then in March, we're going to reevaluate, and we'll sit down with you again and see where Mark is. And if that same scenario applies, when Mark stays back in June, he's going to not be surprised, and neither will his parents. I think it's atrocious to tell a parent, late in the season that their kid's staying back. And I'm not exactly sure how we do that. I don't think that we retain nearly as much as we should. When I talk to teachers, they believe in retention, and I wish we did more of it.
You're bringing back nightmares, Mike, when you use my name like that. That's where my
You would never have stayed
That's where
back.
the teachers talk to my parents.
Yours was behavioral, though.
Yeah, no, well,
Not,
both.
not
I had a-
because you can't write.
I had a
'cause
1-2 punch.
Because I've seen you write. So
No. Hey, the other one, the interesting one, which I didn't bring, if you have the whole warrant, do you have the whole thing?
I don't have, Article 14 was a petition
Yeah.
warrant article.
Yeah,
where-
you didn't bring it either. Oh,
no,
I-
I didn't have that.
completely support it.
Okay, so the Article 14 it's a petition article. Do you know who's behind it?
I don't.
No, I couldn't find out today. I tried.
Okay, but the 25 people obviously signed an
They did,
article,
yep.
and it basically says send a message from the school board, I guess, from
Yeah, it's
whatever.
a non-binding message to the governor or the
Governor.
state,
Right.
essentially saying that you're using taxpayer dollars to send money to charter schools and homeschoolers.
Right.
Because as you know, someone that's homeschooling their kid gets paid.
Right. This is all about the education freedom accounts, or the
Correct.
vouchers,
Right.
which now is open. It used to be that it was only available to low-income families.
Correct.
Now it's open to all incomes, so wealthy people get to send their kids and
Right.
get subsidized. You're Mr. Conservative. Do you support this program, the voucher program?
I don't know. I don't.
You don't.
I don't really support it the way that it's working. But what I do support is that all of these entities that are getting state money, for education, should have to comply with the same rules as the school.
That already failed in the legislature.
Exactly. So if your kid is homeschooled or in a charter school or any other school, all of that reporting should be done exactly the way a public school is done. So there's apples to apples. What we're seeing right now is that if we put too much pressure on a parent to keep their kid in school, they just go, I'm just going to homeschool my kid, right? Now, there's a lot of really good homeschool parents out there
Yeah.
that I'm not talking about right now. So they do a great job at home with their kids, and some of those kids will go on to achieve greatness. But then there's that group that just can't be bothered with getting their kid up to go to school, so we try to put pressure on them. They go home, they're homeschooling, and they're getting no education whatsoever. So
There's no checks and balances.
there's no checks and balances in what the
No
system,
accountability.
and they're getting paid to have that kid at home.
Right. But the other part of that is, and we can go, this is my soapbox, is that I'm paying my money to the state so that I can subsidize a wealthy parent to send their kid to a private school or a religious school,
Yeah.
which is not, it's against our New Hampshire Constitution.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, we're over time. We have dinner to go. Do you have anything? What else, Mike? What we get the
Listen,
school meeting?
I would come back. I know you've been trying to get me in here for a month
know,
or so.
I figured I did
Crazy busy, but I would come back. As always, enjoy talking to you guys.
You
there-
announced last night you're going to run for another year.
Oh, yeah.
That was good
I,
to hear.
Good for you.
I
I think you've been I don't want to say it, but you've been one of the best school board members.
36
Except
years
you
in public
spent-
service.
You like to
Mike
spend a lot of money,
DiGregorio.
but except for that.
It cost me a fortune to do this. I lose so much money in overtime at work. I mean, I show up to everything. My attendance record is just about 100%, always
I
has
know.
been. In order to do that, I give up a tremendous amount of overtime at work
And family time.
and family time. I love doing it.
What do you love about being on the school board?
You know what I love about it is I feel like I'm trying to make a positive change. Now, people don't always agree with me by a long shot, but my goal is to make education better. I want kids to achieve and excel the best they can. And unfortunately, in the school board, I mentioned this last night, it takes time, more time than it ever did when I was making decisions at the selectman's office, more time as a fire commissioner or even the budget committee. The school board, you're talking directly into kids' lives. Every one of those decisions that you make affect those kids. And when you're trying to put things in place, and I'll just use Krista Boucher as a great example. That was my idea, to put her in place for the sole reason of curriculum. I want teachers to learn how to teach better. I want everybody on the same page. And more importantly, I don't want any kid lost in the system. And that, frankly, is what I'm trying to work on next. As they're putting this data together, and Krista and I had a long conversation and meeting the other day. Now that we're getting this data, what are we going to do with it? And what, more importantly, the kids that we see are in this area, this gray area or this red area, what are we going to do specifically to fix that? As you know, I advocated for 2 additional staff members at Pine Tree for the upcoming year. One is a paraprofessional, and one of them is going to be master level, master plus level, because I want focus directly on those kids that are having those issues. I truly believe that if you can fix things at the K through 2, K through 3 area, then so many problems will start to go away downstream or upstream, however you want to look at it.
Well,
so
they
that's
have-
what I believe in, and that's why I do this.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on the certainly the K through the first few years. The Mississippi Miracle, by the way, took 10 years. They didn't do it
That's
overnight.
a great example.
Yeah, and
I hope you
they
will
also
include that in your article.
well, we're seeing it right
Mike's
here.
got 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. We'll see you in 10 years. You'll be in Florida or someplace.
Right.
And then, but they also hired reading specialists
That's
for,
what-
for second and third grade.
Right, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. All right, and then the last thing is this whole, last year there was a special article about moving the entrance to the back and doing all the security changes. Is that, where is that just
we
not?
still believe that there's tremendous amount of security issues that we need to deal with. That particular story is dead at this moment. We did use some money through the technology fund and some maintenance money to put additional cameras and additional entry points. So now when you come in that back door, you can get buzzed in from the front office. There's, I think there's 2 or 3 cameras up in that area that, you know, they'll buzz you in one door, then you got to get buzzed in the next door. So, you know, it's not a free-for-all. You can't prop that door anymore, you know.
Is
but-
there anybody
but it's-
monitoring those doors?
Yeah, it's monitored. There's
I
like
mean, from the front though, with cameras, but is there any
Yes.
anybody there person?
just the Career Tech Center. So, and that was, you know, first of all, I wanted my theory was if we're going to change those doors out, they need to be bulletproof doors. Plain and simple, bulletproof. Not just, you know, I just wanted bulletproof
Okay.
doors. That didn't go anywhere because, you know, I mean, your friend Bill chastises me all the time in the paper because I believe in too much security.
Right.
You know, he thinks that I over-exaggerate all this, and unfortunately, you know, I hope he's 100% right.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I truly do. You know,
Do you feel better that it's safer now with the
well,
system we
it's
have?
a camera and a buzzer. That doesn't stop a freak from, you know, going through the door. You know, that just
It's a locked door.
Well, Mark, I don't know if you've ever seen them or not, but people can get through locked doors, you know, in nefarious ways,
I know,
right?
but right. Okay.
You
we were
know, and my point behind that is I want every student and teacher to go to school feeling as though they're completely safe, and I think it's my responsibility. I died, didn't I?
No, you're
no,
good.
no, it was just something else.
I think it's
That
my
was your wife
responsibility to put that into place. But I can only do that with the voters, right? If the voters choose not to do that, then, you know, I've told them what I believe is the truth, and if they don't support that's okay. I mean,
Now you're an advocate of a new school. You were. Is that still part of your top level ideas?
if I ever win the lottery, you're going to get a brand new school
For
on
what?
the property right behind your house.
Good. For what?
K through 8. I think it should be all under one roof. And
You think it was a mistake to close John Fuller?
No, I do not. I'm really struggling. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm working very, very hard to find the right person to go in there, or right entity.
Like what?
Well, as you know, we had a great conversation with Memorial Hospital.
Right.
And there was heading down the path that they were going to lease a good portion of
Right.
that building. And then we were going to try to find a partner for pre-K
Yeah.
and daycare to be on the other side. Because of changes at the hospital, through no fault of the new president up there, Trish is
Yeah.
doing a phenomenal job. That kind of all fell apart. That was really at a corporate level that made that decision. So I'm really struggling with trying to find a new partner up there. I believe that there's 11 acres of land in the middle of North Conway that we would be incredibly foolish to sell.
Yeah.
If we sell that property, just so people at home understand this, if we sell that property and divvied up the money, because by the time we're done paying off the bond and everything else that involved in the sale of a property, they would get about $50. That would be their, you know, what they would save or whatever.
On the tax bill.
On the tax bill. And you would never, ever get 11 acres of land back in North Conway. I don't know what the future holds for that land. You know, who's to say that in 30 years there wouldn't be a park there?
Welcome center.
welcome center, something different than that's where today. But my goal is to worry about what I'm doing today, and what I'm trying to do is find a great.
Is there anybody else out there for
I'm
top priorities?
I got something in the fire right now that I think the townspeople will be thrilled if it comes in.
What kind of?
It's tough. It's
mean like a
it's
school?
it's in the medical world.
Okay, and that's good.
So, so and the other thing too is we're about to release a survey for all the employees throughout the entire town, including Bartlett, Jackson, wherever. We're looking to figure out what is your actual daycare needs. I have family members that have trouble getting daycare, right? And a lot of these locations, and I don't want to knock on any of them, but there's about 14 around the valley. Their hours are, very limited. Some of them are 8 to 4. A lot of them are 9 to 1, 9 to whatever. You go into cities like Manchester, and I have a niece down in South Carolina right now. They're 7 to 7, right? Is their hours,
yeah, gotta
right?
work.
People have to work. I would also like to see a platform of 7 to 10, and the reason for that is half the valley is working after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But here's the biggest thing I want people to take away from this. My goal is that building has no tax burden at all. I want to figure out who the tenant's going to be, and who let's say we get some daycare in there. The building has to be self-sustaining, maybe even make a little profit, but I'm more concerned with self-sustaining both in the maintenance world as well as, any bonds that get.
And you say you have prospects out there?
I do.
And you're the guy who's leading this?
I'm trying to, Mark. I really am.
Come on.
I mean,
Let's get going. No, I agree. I think
if I don't get elected, I only got a few weeks left to pull it off. But
I think John Fuller, that property is like giving away Shula Park.
Exactly.
It's just would be crazy. It's invaluable. Anyway, Lloyd, you got anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, Mike.
As always.
Nice to see you.
Coming in.
As always, again, like the new studio. Say hi to Bill Edmonds. He's out there somewhere.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.